Super excited to have everyone here today. And again, this is the official, I can't believe it's September already, September Presenter Series with Meggan Flaherty, who I'll introduce here in a second. So great to see everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for our monthly presenter series. This call is about learning today, about engaging. So if you're able to be on camera and join in the conversations, please do. Also, regardless of where you are in your AI journey or how big or how small your company is, I want to hear from you today. So we're all here to support one another at the COO Forum. This is a great opportunity to compare notes with each other. Some of us may be a little further ahead, some of us may be a little further behind. It doesn't matter. We're all on that same journey of self-improvement. AI obviously has been front and center for a lot of us. I hear that conversation across the organization throughout our different meetings. While this is not necessarily a discussion about AI, it kind of is. We're not going to get into the technical aspects of AI, but what I'm so excited about having Meggan here for and the work that she does at MindWire and Predictive Index is that oftentimes when we're talking about AI across the COO Forum, we're really, I think, missing an opportunity to talk about the people component to AI. And about the change management component as well, that is going to be the make or break, regardless of like technology or strategies we have. If we don't have the people side of it nailed down, the efforts are going to fail. And so I'm really excited for us to engage in this topic today. So Meggan Flaherty, Vice President and Partner at the MindWire Group. I think their tagline is they are a human capital consulting firm. They've worked with a few of our member companies already and have had some glowing reviews. They help us move from gut feeling to being data driven, regardless of industry or sizes of companies. They use, one of their underpinnings is a product called Predictive Index, if you've ever used Predictive Index. I have in my past. It's been a game changer in how we hired, how we developed teams, how we led those teams. It's a great tool. We'll dig into that a bit today as well. But I think the bulk of the conversation is going to be about people and tools that we all can use. So how was that intro, Meggan? Did I do okay?
You do always more than okay, Chuck. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate that. It's phenomenal. And I really appreciate your spending time together today because AI is showing up everywhere, right? It's the new reality, but also the reality is that what is AI doing for us? It's supporting productivity, but it doesn't always replace the people. And as COOs, you really need to lead with the balance between, what's some of this that's really a lot of hype, and how do you lead change with your team so that you can still execute faster with less friction, more alignment, and also equip your leaders with tools that are going to enable them to lead through changes like this, not add more pressure. Nobody needs more pressure today. We're all running hard and fast, and we just need things to be a little easier. But your job as a COO is to turn some of these new tools into more wins and being able to do so with clear expectations too. So what are we going to cover today? You all can see my screen okay? Yeah? Yep, good. Okay. And we're going to focus on a few things. Some of the realities of AI today, how we're going to equip those leaders with data-driven tools, and to ensure that, adoption of technology or anything new, right, for change is going to help strengthen your culture instead of breaking it or causing a lull. You want to keep everybody moving forward here. And culture is really important. You know that most organizations, and probably all of your organizations, are about being human, and everything that you're going to be doing around change reflects on how you bring those humans along. Change adoption works when it strengthens the culture. And, one of the leaders that I've worked with recently has admitted that, sometimes you're moving so fast, you go, oh, shoot, what do I need to make sure that we're still holding to be true for our culture and keeping our people front and center? Because, when the productivity of AI comes in and the balance sheet of attrition starts rising, we're with people leaving because we've neglected our culture, that causes a new set of unintended consequences. So that's causing that leader I'm working with to take a pause and step back and say, oh, let's get to the core of who we are. And that's most important, the people. And how do you use those tools to make sure that the people are productive and you're keeping your culture intact? Now, you all, maybe you've seen this hype cycle before. And what we're showing here is a combination of the Gartner hype cycle, the Everett Rogers diffusion of innovations, and Jeffrey Moore's crossing the chasm, where you're looking at there is all these aspects that come into play around adopting technology. And what you're going to find with any new technology is that front and center, you're going to see people who are going to be really excited about it and early adopters, really enthusiastic, wanting to move fast. Then you're going to find that you have some skeptics. And your job is to be able to guide that adoption so the tools don't create noise, but add measurable value here. So let's dive into our first discussion here. Let me pause and ask you, where are you implementing AI in your company today? What are you working on? And how are people responding to it?
I'll go. We have an AI committee, and everything, all the ideas that anybody has, it goes through the committee first, but we're working on our execution process. So the actual work that we're doing, and building agents and such. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see where everything is at whenever it's done here soon.
It's great you have a committee. And how are people responding to some of these agents that you're building out?
It's people are at different stages. Some people, I think, are not willing to embrace change or readily want to embrace change. I've always done it this way and it works for me, so I'm going to continue to do it, while others really adopt it. And I just am excited about the people that are really adopting it and going along with it. So there's a mixture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you have those friendlies, when you're bringing in something new to capitalize on their enthusiasm and momentum, that can be really great too. How about others? Hi, Joe.
Yeah, I'm sorry, did somebody else want to go? Okay. We're doing very much like she just mentioned, we have a AI transformation and implementation committee. And we did a kind of a skunk works. We have 23 autonomous agents on our org chart right now. And I think when we first started doing the skunk works, everybody was a little bit hesitant. And we had a town hall and said, look, we will not reduce a single job in Rollick as a result of AI. So the only way to lose your job as a result of AI is if you don't embrace it, right? And we just said we're going to be an AI first organization and we want everybody to be involved in that. And we have zero plans to reduce a single head as a result of the efficiencies that we're going to gain. And the only thing that we are going to leverage that for is scalability through the organization so that we can do more things with the team that we have today. And so once we did that, and we, thank goodness we did it early on, but it was a game changer. Then everybody was like signing up for this project and that project. And then it became, oh my goodness, like we don't have enough resources to support everybody in every project. So it really just opened up the door. And we created a Teams channel for AI and, you know, any tools that people had, prompt sharing libraries, any AI news, etc., where every team member in the organization contributes to that. And we have our CEO go in, you know, a couple times a week and comment and all that kind of stuff. And so I think once everybody figured out that they're not going to lose their jobs, it was a game changer and the curve just accelerated.
And it's all a part of communication, meeting people where they are to help them understand where you're going. You know,
Yeah.
remove the mystery. Remove the mystery. Who else wants to chime in with where they're at, with what they're experimenting with or implementing?
We've done a lot of what is,
Oh.
go ahead.
I was going to say that at my company, Special Machine here, we've brought in kind of AI as a personal productivity, right? To identify workflows and let our team, you know, experiment with the technology. It's relatively recent where we've started doing this, and again, really just trying to get our hands around, you know, how we can improve our process internally. It's been well received, I think, and working through some of the restrictions on access, you know, company information and protecting, make sure all those things are in place, and that's kind of been, you know, making sure we had that all correct. And then on a separate initiative, we're looking at on the purchasing side of our organization, you know, developing an AI agent tool to be able to kind of take over that relatively, you know, straightforward task that we have, you know, people doing right now that we can vector them to other higher priority return on investment activities as opposed to, you know, tracking down parts and materials.
Wow, great, great, excellent. Excellent. And that part of making sure you're understanding the good ins and outs of AI, you know, what to protect your assets, your IP, things like that. Yeah. And using it as productivity. Kat, you were going to also share?
Yeah, no, a lot of the same things. We did do a task force that got actually the previous seminar series workshop back in January kind of kickstarted me to get the task force going, really get people from I don't know what AI is to comfortable with it. So is that communication, making it kind of AI for we're going to use it, embrace it, make it okay, all of those things. The interesting one though is we did finally add Gong, which is a sales AI tool. I wanted to go a little bit simpler and use the one that Salesforce already has, but sales is like, no, they got sold Gong, which is fine. But the bigger problem is that the customers don't always, so AI tools are great, but you have to kind of balance it because customers don't necessarily want to be recorded. And especially if you work with defense customers, they don't want to be, so the whole purpose of the tool. So it's kind of and not everything is, you know, perfect yet, because again, all of the privacy issues are starting to come up. And so that's the next challenge is dealing with exactly where you're putting it in. It's a great concept, but you might not necessarily, there's hurdles still in the industry to overcome.
Hurdles and also laws too. In certain states, you also have regulations around when meetings can be recorded and permissions, things like that. And what you bring up is an amazing point, Kat, too, is like how your customers also respond to the work that you are doing with AI. And we're all going to go through this great learning experience with these new tools. Much like many of us lived through when email got released, and we were all thinking we would have less meetings because we're communicating through email, or we weren't going to print out as much paper either. But those things never bared to be true, but we discovered other things with those tools. So it all boils down to the people there that you are working with, and those and their enthusiasm or perhaps even skepticism when it comes to change. And when we understand the people even better, we can better understand how we can meet them where they are. So Jill, it sounds like you had a really great opportunity here in terms of understanding where people are, to develop those communications, to get people on board. And that's where the rubber meets the road when you're coming to adopt for adoption of these new tools. Everybody's coming to the table with their own strengths. And with their own strengths, there's going to be a lot of differences in how they appreciate more information or less information, or taking risks or not taking as much risk, or being more methodical in their decision making. Some people are naturally wired for more structure and clarity, and others, hey, let's go. Let's figure it out and find out what happens as we go along. There are those who are that way too. When we understand and using these tools here and the data that we can glean from these tools and using the predictive index tools, you can understand where these people are actually coming from their naturally hardwired strengths. Now, back to you folks in terms of what you're seeing in terms of adoption and questions or resistance or even enthusiasm. What are some of those questions that are popping up for your teams or your leaders, or what are your leaders grappling with? On the people side.
On the people side, if anything, there sometimes can be too much enthusiasm, so they want to add AI to everything, and it's like, okay, slow down a little bit. And not only that, there's costs involved with everything. It's like, oh, but it's cheap. And I'm like, but multiply that out by 12 months and by 275 people, and that's $60,000 right there. And you want that tool and that tool and that tool. So it's like, yeah, you don't want to squash people's enthusiasm for it, but you need to be careful at the same time.
Right, because otherwise you are just handing out cash to anybody who has a great IA tool, and you're like, oh, we don't know if that works. Let's slow the roll a little bit. Yeah, so you're having to pump the brakes with some folk on that adoption, which is a nice problem to have. Yeah, others.
I think for us, there's two things. I think one is prioritization of the projects to make sure that you're truly getting an ROI out of them, and you're not doing AI to just do AI, but you're using AI to actually solve a real business problem, right? And just kind of articulating that to the leaders so that they can lead their team in that way. And then the second thing that continues to come up in our leadership meetings about it is the more we utilize it, the more concern leaders have about people actually knowing and understanding the process. So if something goes wrong, right, the AI is trained to go back to human in the loop. But if it goes right for months and then all of a sudden it goes wrong, people don't remember those processes. And so before we're implement any of the AI, we're documenting the process, we're doing the flow charts, we're updating the SOPs, and we're getting everything like crystal clear in terms of what you do if it doesn't work and you need human in the loop again, just to make sure before anything goes out into production that they have a procedure to leverage. We forget over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the new people coming in might never learn that process because it's automated. So what happens when it kicks out? And so there's just this whole new, push on documentation and procedures and stuff before we put anything out to handle it.
Which drives a lot of really good clarity, and it emphasizes too, you still need to have humans in the mix here to do that checks and balances. Hey, check if it's still working well. Why is it still working well? But also, if something goes sideways, who is going to be responsible for making sure that you go get it back on the rails, right? Yeah.
If I could just jump in on Jill's thought in terms of ensuring that there's an ROI. I remember back in the implementing lean days when I was implementing lean and doing Six Sigma, the CFO at the company that I was working with was very skeptical about all of the work that we were doing and whether it was actually dropping to the bottom line. We were calculating the amount of time and saved meetings and all of that? And while is time saved from a meeting really dropping to the bottom line? You know, are you getting more productivity? And initially, I viewed that person as kind of an obstacle, or you know, not wanting to adopt to the change. But in reality, in hindsight, they were actually very instrumental in getting us to think more thoroughly through the use of the tools to ensure that we were driving value, not just reiterating the use of the tool blindly. And so in that case, someone who seemed to be an obstacle was actually very beneficial to the effort, because they forced us to be more disciplined and really build better use cases that had a return on investment. So I agree with Jill that we've got to find ROI. And sometimes the loudest voices for ROI actually have something very important to listen to.
Yeah. And also what you're measuring for ROI too. You know, what are those components that you are pulling in is really important to address that as well. Yeah, yeah. How many of you folks are navigating through some skeptics with the adoption? Yeah, several. Yeah. And what are some of the questions or concerns that are popping up for your teams?
People are worried about privacy, about our data getting out.
That privacy component. Who's going to share? Who's going to know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And have you? What are you doing to address some of that?
I mean, we are honestly trying to keep a little bit of that healthy skepticism, right? We talk about how if you're going to be using ChatGPT or Copilot, and Copilot has to be on a paid license, right? But ChatGPT also, we have paid licenses of that, which they say makes it better, right? That's sort of how we say it. They say that protects our data a little better. We still want to be really careful.
Because you never know. You never know.
We just don't know yet. Yeah.
Right. And the industry is quite new. And so we're going to be learning along the way all together. And it's good to have some of those questions bring up. Those are your voices of reason in the room. Hey, we need to be thinking about some of these things. Now, and it really helps to make sure that you're putting a good plan in place. Yeah. Mike, it looks like you went off mute for a moment there. Did you have?
No, I was just going to say, I feel like we don't have skeptics. We have people that are excited, and then we have people that are just completely disinterested. Like they don't care. Like,
Disinterested is
you guys talk about
disguised as
AI,
skeptic.
let me know when it's something I have to care about, but right now it's not impacting me, so I don't care.
Right.
I feel like we don't have a lot of people that are actively like against it, if you will.
Right. They're just going along until
Feels like
the moment
noise.
arrives.
Okay,
feels
it's
like
another
noise.
thing, and at some point I'll care about it, but it's not right now.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes that's disguised as somebody being skeptic. It's like, oh, I can't see how this fits in my role. I can't see how this is going to add value. I'm going to do the wait and see move. And so it's about really understanding and asking some curious questions. Right. Let's figure that out together. All right. So you're all in a lot of different phases here. It sounds like with your adoption of AI, the different tools, the different things that you're putting in place. Some of you are a lot further down the road than others. And some of you you're experiencing a lot of enthusiasm, so much so that you have to protect your budgets, and others are managing through still some skeptics there. And when we take a look at, again, those tools that we have for the predictive index tools, we can identify right out of the gate who are potentially going to be your enthusiastic early adopters, and then those who will be perhaps maybe a little bit more skeptical, take a little bit longer to get on board. But if you can identify those people a lot faster in using that data, then you can shape how you are going to communicate and manage change with those teams. Equip those leaders to help them best understand their teams, to be able to carry people along here through this whole change management process here. Have any of you experienced using the predictive index tools? No? A few of you? No? Okay. It's a really quick survey that folks can take. And what it helps us to identify are people's naturally hardwired strengths. And when we can do that, we can understand how people will naturally show up. And that those people's naturally hardwired strengths can come into play in helping to understand how you put the right person in the right role. Also, too, how you communicate and collaborate with folks. So you can meet them where they are and make those adjustments as you need for understanding when you have that great understanding of somebody's strengths there. All right. So I think it might be a useful exercise here if we could go into a breakout room. And what I would love for you folks to discuss here are how are you looking at that change management with your teams? And where are you feeling the most pressure or the most challenge in working with your teams for change management? And Fiona, will you be able to help us do that? We'll give you folks about 10 minutes to go in the room and come back and we'll report back. We have everybody back from their breakout rooms. Excellent. What bubbled up for everybody? What were some of those challenges you're having with the change management, or even your leaders? What are some of the challenges or surprises that have come about? Yeah, George.
Yeah, so in our group, I think we had a couple of predominant themes. One is, buy-in from all echelons of the organization, right? In my case, I highlighted skepticism at very high levels in my company on the utility and the advantages of using AI and its return on investment. One of our other team members highlighted that the pace of the push for the drive or implementation of technology and AI. I think he had a very good quote that I wrote down. Is like, how much are we willing to break to make sure we're around in 2 years, right? And what does that impact? It was kind of one of those big themes that we came through on our side. And then of course just the actual execution of change management in general, and not only in AI but also across all just in general organizations just do a change management period and its challenges. So
yeah, because change management is not a check the box activity. It's a process we all go through every time something new comes up, and we all go through it differently. Yeah, great. How about other groups? What do you discover and learn from each other that was a validating or a surprise?
One item that our group talked about, which I thought was really interesting, is billable hours. So the fear was that there would be, if they diverted to do some of the AI automation and enhancements during that period, they would have less billable hours to their client, and the whole lifeblood of the organization is based on billable hours. So it's interesting because once you get across that chasm, we're based on billable hours as well in our consulting half of our organization, and we find that we actually have more time to spend with clients, and therefore we're increasing billable hours because of our automation. But until you get across that chasm, that is a real concern, right? And so if you never take that leap, you'll never get to the other side of it to bill more, and you have to be willing to have a period where you might bill less, right? But it's funny because it doesn't often come up, but I thought it was a good observation.
Yeah, it's what you identified in that scenario, Jill, is everybody's coming to a change with some sort of fear about What is it? What's going to happen for them? And when you really get to the core of it and understand that, then you can address it much better. And it's really about, okay, how can we understand what is the actual fear here? And can we address it in an impactful way? And holy smokes, it was actually even better than you would even expect, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there anybody else have anything that was really profound for you in your breakouts you'd love the rest of the group to learn about?
I'd like to hear Ken maybe recount, if you don't mind, the
Yeah.
AI product for banking.
Oh, sure. So I was tasked with bringing on a consumer lending AI platform for our bank, which took about 9 months to implement with all of the regulatory authorities and legal fees and whatnot. And we got it going. But there were a lot of challenges internally with some of the older school bankers that used to do it their way. So you have an individual who's been in banking 50 years and that's how he's done it, right? And to then now have this AI platform, do it, but do it within 48 hours, where it may have taken, the bank staff 2 weeks to have done the same type of transaction. And so what I learned through this process of change management is that by bringing on this new technology, it actually threatened his identity. It actually threatened who he was, his stature, his position, within the bank, and being that authority, that subject matter expert, that chief operating officer for the bank. And so what I had to start doing with him and others is trying to help them understand the why behind it is going to help them, and they're going to benefit. They're actually gaining and not losing. We're not trying to take anything away from them, but they can gain and grow and benefit, because of it. And that was one of the things that I kind of took for granted when presenting it to the bank, as this is going to be wonderful for us as an institution. But really our staff and our employees are thinking about, well, how is it going to impact me and my direct bottom line and my future and security here? And whatever happens with the bank, it happens with the bank. But uno nuno, right? And so so we had to kind of work through that. And so it was a very eye-opening experience for me. And it was one of the things that we discussed through our South Regional chapter that helped me make the pivot in how to present the value proposition to our bank and senior leadership, to bring it top down, but then to also talk to the line staff on why we're moving forward with AI technology.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. Well, that's a very compelling story, and how you have to carry people through that process in understanding why, and how you learn that, Ken. And sometimes there's there's tools that you can leverage, to get to that a little bit faster, and understand who may need to know the why right out of the gate, and how you craft that communication and carry people along, and how much runway you might need to give certain people so that they have time to think it through and ask their questions and feel more comfortable with that change. Because what it boils down to in terms of your talent is that you want to make sure that you're keeping people engaged along the way through this change. You don't want people to drop off. You don't want morale to drop off. And there are these 4 elements of where people will be engaged. It's, hey, do I like the job that I'm doing? Am I productive? I'm engaged. Is my manager a great manager? Is somebody I can work with? Excellent. Check that box. How about my team? If I'm working on a team, do I feel like I'm a part of a team and I'm aligned with the work we're doing? And am I aligned with the purpose and culture that we have here? And we gather this data from the predictive index surveys and assessments so that we can understand, again, where everybody's strengths are and figure out how we can approach people based off of where those strengths sit. And I have an illustration here for what that might look like. You have certain people in your organization who are just naturally skeptical, right? They're going to ask why. They're going to have questions, lots of questions, want some clarity, want to make sure that they understand every nook and cranny before they take that first step off the start line. And then there are other folks, I think Jill and others, some others have expressed that you're like, hey, let's do this. This is great. Let's go. And want to move really fast. Well, sometimes in change, you really can understand who those people are because you see those behaviors pop out. And we see with some of those behaviors that pop out that you automatically notice who's going to thrive around change and who may be a little resistant or apathetic, maybe saying, hey, I'll show up when it means something. But you can use this data to get to that information a lot faster. Wouldn't it be nice if you get an understanding of where your naturally hardwired strengths are and your team members or your leaders and equip them with the data so that they can manage those communications, manage those questions, put a change management process together that's going to meet people where they are. And that's where this data will help you out with that. Have you ever used any type of tool like this before with your folks to really understand in your change management process how to meet them where they are? Yeah, Chuck has. Yeah. Anyone else? I'm not seeing any hands. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say we've used it, but we haven't applied it very well.
You haven't applied it. Yeah.
Like
Okay.
we had everyone do a DISC assessment a few years back, and then we put it on our intranet, everyone's DISC profile, but then got used sparingly. I won't say it never got used, but it got used very sparingly.
Right. Sometimes we use these tools right out of the gate, just like AI, and say, wow, this is exciting. This is wonderful. Let's use this tool. And then we move on to the next thing. And like you're just saying there, Mike, and it's great to dust some of this stuff off if you already have something in place, or maybe even want to use a tool like this, where you can bring it back into the work that you're already doing there with your leaders. And most importantly, it's about equipping your leaders to really understand how they can carry people along, right? Yeah. When we take a look at what your leaders are doing right now, sometimes they don't always understand their teams or how to communicate with their teams. What are some of the challenges your leaders are facing right now with their teams?
I'll just jump in from experience in that when we look at the person on the left,
Mhm.
I've had an experience many times where leaders see that person that needs more information to make the decisions personally. And if they're running or leading a department, they're more likely to be seen as a roadblock. And as leaders, we're trained to remove roadblocks in organizations. And so oftentimes that creates this internal friction to the point of labeling somebody as a roadblock. They're not a team player. And it's unfortunate casting of that person who brings the strengths that are very important to a change initiative. So what we did was, rather than confront this person and try to change the person, we actually magnified their strengths and said, okay, we want you to be the person on the team that challenges us. We want you to be the skeptic. We let them celebrate the style that they had and say, okay, we know that you'll do the analysis necessary to make sure that you feel comfortable with it. And we trust you enough that if you feel comfortable with it, then that's going to be beneficial to the rest of the organization. And so we actually created positions on our committees that were full of skeptics. We actually, we had a little bit of fun with it, but we called that their superpower, because the rest of us would just march on, without giving it much thought, because, it's a shiny object, or we're aggressive in getting things done. But we literally took folks that were more mindful in terms of the data and analysis, and we gave them a specific role, and that actually strengthened our change management process and made it fun, and it let everyone just be open and transparent and be honest. And so we had language in our meetings that was like, look, I haven't come around with this yet. I still need to analyze it. And we're like, okay, great. Get back to us and let us know what you're thinking and what you find out. And it makes the process that much stronger. That was my experience.
Yeah. And to your point, Chuck, sometimes when folks come in wanting more clarity, wanting more details, it feels like they're popping the bubble of a great big idea, when in fact, they're probably trying to be really supportive and helpful in making sure that everybody is going to be successful in driving towards a really great outcome. And when we understand the intent behind that versus our bias around the intent, that helps us really understand where that person is coming from and bring them in a lot differently, and shine the light on what they're trying to do, and use them as an ally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. And it's also important for those who are just ready to barrel ahead. Sometimes you have to help them understand that it's okay to pump the brakes a little bit, because you might find that you are all by yourself over at your destination with nobody around you. And if you can't carry people along with you, then you might find yourself in a little bit of a pickle there. So helping people who are wanting to drive really hard and fast, understand that it's okay to pump the brakes too, and make sure that you're carrying everybody along with you. Sometimes what we also find is useful for these tools too, and I imagine like Jill and some others are putting together their cross-functional teams to be able to understand, how do you put AI in place? How do you make sure you have the right makeup of the team, and with the diversity of thinking of, oh, great, let's figure out something creative and new, but also bringing in the people who are going to help understand, what are the processes? What are the details that need to be taken care of? And when you can use this data, you can understand how you can assemble a really well-balanced team to make sure that you're not just piling everybody into, oh, let's go mode over here, with maybe only one person saying, hey, you know what? We need to make sure we have some good SOPs and structure and rules and around how we're using this, especially in privacy, that you take a closer look at who you're bringing into that mix for implementing change, that you have a good balance of strengths with that for your teams. Right now, what are you folks doing to make sure you are assembling the right teams? Are you just picking the people who raise their hands, or do you have a sense of skills that you want to have on those cross-functional teams? What is your general approach?
Hi, Megan. This is Ara. We're trying to assemble a team to help us with our 401k partnership, the partnership that we have. But the first step that we did, which I think is unique, we're asking for interest first, because it's 401k, it's dealing with finances, dealing with stocks. So before we put certain people on there, we want to find out first if they're interested. I think historically we typically put the best performers on different teams. But now we're looking at, are they interested in doing it before we put them on there? And I think that's going to make a difference when we contribute in the outcome of our 401k plan.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to, you want people who want to be there too. And sometimes too, even if you just pull in top performers, they also may not also be the right fit for what you're trying to accomplish. They may be top performers in the work that they're doing, but maybe not the project or the other type of work that you're hoping that they would also be good at. And so this stuff helps you align with that too. So interest and top performers combined. Yeah. What other approaches are you folks using?
Or no, you were coming off of Mike, I think.
I was going to say some of the same thing. I think we've used two approaches: is which people raise their hands, so show interest, and they're not always the top performers. That's an important point. The other thing that we've done is we've nominated, actually, so we've asked the managers in the team, created some ambassadors community. We call them AI ambassadors. And we ask managers to nominate one person in the team to be part of that ambassadors. Obviously, if the person declines or doesn't show up to the meetings, we change. But so it's been a mix of proactive and kind of push-pull type of approach to the topic.
And when you said you don't always nominate top performers, what's going into that?
So specifically to our organization, the top performers are sometimes the guardian of the orthodoxy. If you know what I mean by that, they're the one that have done things a certain way very successfully, and they're not necessarily the one that are willing to step out of their comfort zone, to take a risk and to do a change. They're not early adopters. That doesn't mean they're not late adopters, right? But we want the people that will push the change, create the energy, the enthusiasm, be willing to share, be willing to go on a limb, and then bring these guys on. That's what I meant.
Yeah, great. Good. Anyone else have a slightly different approach or something else that they do when they're bringing their teams together? Pretty much the same. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, one of the things that we love to offer to our COO Forum members is the opportunity to take advantage of these tools here. And there's a couple of things that I would like to present to you in terms of what that could look like. And these tools are also encompassing of how could you use these tools for maybe a change management project that you're working on. Maybe there's with your sales team, or maybe there's a leadership performance component here. And what we would love to offer to you is complimentary, is that we would take this opportunity to have you and your leadership team and your team there complete the behavioral assessments and give you the debrief of the results of those assessments and help you to be able to map strengths for those change management projects that you're working on, and to put those into actionable strategies and help you get folks aligned even faster. We do have a couple of other complementary tools, but in relationship to these change components, this might be something that might be helpful or useful for you to try on and see if it will be invaluable for you to take a look at your team and bring your team together and bring some more cohesion and more productivity and get people moving along a lot faster. What is that? I'm sorry, I believe I wasn't sharing my screen, but I hope I'm sharing my screen right now. And these are available all to you. Just need to reach out to me, or you can go to the COO Forum website there. What is why those tools are going to be helpful, useful for you, because you'll be able to use these tools to help you predict performance here. And that's what you really want to get at. And the problem that you're trying to solve as a CO, it's like, okay, I got to solve a problem and I got to figure out how I can do this effectively and efficiently. And when you have this data, you can solve for these problems. Get that data around your people, around to help you with hiring and promoting or developing people, or even just increasing self-awareness. That's what these tools can do for you to maximize performance there. So that is what I will leave with you in terms of the offer that we have here for our COO Forum members, because we want to make sure that you have that opportunity to maximize performance, especially around your AI tools that you are working on implementing here with your organizations. Because the bottom line here is that anything new that you bring in, you're going to have people that are going to have to implement it. And you want to do it in a way that reduces friction, accelerates execution, and keeps your culture intact. All right. So that's where we'll leave that today. And I wanted to just take a moment to understand what your biggest takeaway was today, and if there's any follow-up questions from anyone. And then we'll pass it off to Chuck.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from folks that, especially in the breakout rooms that we didn't hear from, or otherwise. What are some takeaways that in your AI journey you hadn't thought of prior to the conversations today? Mike?
In the breakout room, it's just interesting that the four of us just had different challenges, or highlighted different challenges, right? It was pace, it was variability by team, variability by generation. So it's like a lot of different things to think about in terms of change management. And they probably all were at play to some extent with each of us, but not at different levels, right?
Yeah. Others? Jessica, can I pick on you today, Jessica? I love your comments. I want to hear from you.
I only had one comment, I think. I've got a team of technophobes, so it's challenging because I need to help them see that AI is a tool that will help them. And so I'm trying to insert AI into the periphery so that they see it and understand it without having to use it themselves. And then my hope is that if I can get them to see value in it, I can get them to start looking for ways that they can use it themselves.
Yeah. Technophobes, is that one of the predictive index personality types, Meggan?
No, there's 17. That's not one of them yet.
I think we have a
But
new
you can
one.
certainly put in for it if you want. Yeah. 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 That's a bit of a challenge, Jessica, for sure, with adopting new tools, especially technology.
Yeah, yeah. I would hope, just to turn that question upside down, is how do we help our team members find value in this new technology? Flip the script a little bit and say, how can we find value in the person that will add to the technology? And so to give those skeptics a voice, to help those that want to run faster understand that the rest of the team may need to analyze, and it's better for the whole organization if we can kind of tap into the differences as strengths and not differences to be overcome. I think is when I used predictive index way back in my career, it did just that. It made sure that we looked at individual players holistically and challenged ourselves to look at skeptics as actually real power, because that's normally who we get short-tempered with. It's the skeptics. It's the people that are slowing us down, because I've never met a COO that didn't want to move fast, execute, let's get results. And so we have a tendency, myself included, to to try to convince the laggards that they need to pick it up rather than to slow down and ask what value they bring. And so that's what predictive index really did for us, and it made for much stronger teams. But I'm curious what other people have gotten from the conversation today. George, I see you leaning in. Or others.
Yeah, I was going to say that you know, for my team, you know, I really, and it's probably deficient on my part, but obviously we're an EOS company, and I really rely on the leadership team to come together and champion these causes, you know, and probably doesn't, for the entire organization, take the stress or take advantage of maybe talents at lower levels in the team, but it gives me a consistent team that I know I can rely on to do you know, some lifting and execution, and then in theory let them engage lower levels and translate that up to the larger team. So and it's probably deficient on one side, but on the other side it gets me efficiency, I think, in rolling out initiatives at a level across the company.
Anyone else that want to share before we wrap things up today? Anyone?
Well, I do appreciate Meggan coming in and talking, because you know, the one takeaway for me again is we're pretty terrible at change management in my company. You know, we just try to fight our way through it, right? And you know how it goes, right? And so we try to balance it, and you know, and then the other thing that I really, out of our breakout session, was the pace comment, because it just kind of slapped me across the face when he said it, and I was like, yeah, well, that is a true statement. I'm either behind, or I'm definitely not ahead. I'm way behind, and how much am I going to break to be, you know, keeping up with the masses in my industry? So that was very enlightening. That light bulb is very representative of, you know, that moment.
Yeah.
Great. Good.
All right, well, wonderful. So if you can come off mute, let's give Meggan a round of applause. Thank you, Meggan, for coming into our group again and sharing your insights and wisdom with everyone, and getting us ready for the weekend, I think. We're all caffeinated. We've got our pumpkin spice this and pumpkin spice that, and our nose drinking LMT, which I'm not even sure what that is. I'm gonna have to text him later to ask about that. But thank you so much, Meggan. Thank you for helping us frame the questions around people and building the right teams. And while we want to move fast with AI, and we'll also have to make sure that we're bringing the entire team along, because you're right, AI does not work without people. At least not yet, until we get the AI to like replace us, and then I don't know if we just still collect a check. I don't know how that works, but anyways. Thank you so much. Just a few housekeeping items.
Well, thank you too, folks. I really appreciate all your conversations and discussions and being open to the conversation. There's a lot we're all going to be learning here, and just here for you if you want to take advantage of anything or for those opportunities. Would love to help you go faster and understand how you can help your people go faster too, and carrying them along.
Yeah, thank you for that, Meggan. And for the companies that are member companies that have engaged with Meggan, the feedback is it's super low price. It's just really having a discussion, and you'll gain from that. If you're able to get a few key members to go through the predictive index survey, you're gonna, even if it's just your small team and not your organization, you'll learn a ton from it. And again, Meggan and everyone at MindWire are excellent to work with. So equip yourself with the data, and you just can't go wrong. So I can't highly recommend Meggan enough.